My name is Taylor Knapp. I'm the corporate chef of Flavour Fields, and you're listening to Ingredient Insiders.
This is Ingredient Insiders. I'm John Magazzino.
And I'm Andrea Parkins.
On each episode of Ingredient Insiders, we'll be talking with chefs and food writers about their favorite ingredients.
We then speak to the producer of that ingredient to learn its history, how it's made, and why chefs love to use it in their kitchens.
Today, Andrea, we've got Nicolas Mazard coming in from Flavour Fields.
Yeah, Nicolas is one of the owners of Flavour Fields, which is an amazingly beautiful microgreen company right out on Long Island, New York here.
Yeah, they grow the coolest stuff. Like, I can't wait to see. Hopefully he brings some stuff in the studio.
I saw John with some boxes, yeah.
So he's got all of these, like, think of like baby versions of herbs and lettuces, and then also some things with like these crazy flavors. He's been around New York and around the United States selling to the best of the best restaurants these just little finishing flourishes of greens.
Absolutely. I think sometimes when you're out and you're dining and you eat maybe an appetizer, I'm thinking almost like a crudo John or a little salad, and there's like this really exciting garnish. It could be something super peppery or herbaceous. A lot of the times those are microgreens, and a lot of those baby lettuces or baby herbs, as you're talking about, they're kind of like jam-packed with flavor.
Yeah, I think microgreens sometimes get a bad rap, and I don't know if that's because they are overused, but they really can add the same way that you're seasoning, something with salt or pepper or olive oil at the end. Just a couple of these leaves can really change a dish.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying one once. It was a leaf, and when I took a bite, it tasted exactly like a Granny Smith apple.
Wow.
So, you think one thing, when you're eating it. When I think lettuce, I'm not thinking about eating an apple, and boom, it's this kind of burst of flavor. So I'm really excited to kind of learn more about the process. And I also know that now they're even doing live microgreens, so you can kind of extend that shelf life. So I think talking with Nicolas and Chef is going to be really great.
Amazing. All things microgreens with Flavour Fields.
Introducing Flavour Fields microgreens, the tiny powerhouses of taste that pack a punch. Grown with care and precision, these vibrant greens are bursting with flavor, freshness, and nutrients. Whether you're garnishing a gourmet dish or adding a pop of color to your culinary creations, Flavour Fields microgreens are the chef's best-kept secret. Elevate your plates to new heights and let your imagination flourish with the exquisite flavors of Flavour Fields. Get ready to sow the seeds of culinary greatness.
This season of Ingredient Insiders is brought to you by Bizzini Nuts, a name synonymous with exceptional quality and taste in the world of gourmet nuts and dried fruits. Whether you're crafting a Michelin star-worthy dish or just whipping up something delicious in your home kitchen, Bizzini's premium selection is designed to inspire your culinary creativity. Elevate your dishes with the rich texture and flavors that only Bizzini nuts can offer. From toasted almonds, perfect for garnishing, to pistachios that add a crunch to your salads, Bizzini has everything you need to enhance your recipes. Don't miss this chance to impress your palate and your guests with Bizzini nuts, the chef's choice for quality and flavor.
This episode is in partnership with The Chef's Warehouse and produced by Gotham Production Studios in New York City. This is the Eat Your Greens episode, Andrea.
What a beautiful spread we're looking at here,
I know, we've got,
John.
And we're in the studio in New York with Nicolas Mazard, one of the owners of Flavour Fields, which is this incredible company that's making and growing beautiful microgreens. What do you say? And leaves and buds?
Leaves and flowers,
Yep.
and all those microgreens. Yeah, like a wide varieties of them.
And you're doing this all on Long Island, New
That's
York?
correct. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I don't sound like I'm from Long Island. I try to practice my Long Island accent, but
Yeah, I almost couldn't tell.
it's confusing, right?
Yeah.
So in this world that you live in, this world of microgreens and leaves and stuff, it kind of, I feel like maybe it was the 1980s where they started to become popular, and I feel like it might have been just like certain herbs that we normally considered, either whether it was basil or
Mint, cilantro.
There became smaller micro versions of them. Tell us about the history. How did this all start?
Yeah.
So, well, listen, I think that's fascinating where it's coming from.
Yeah.
So microgreens is not a type of plant. It's just babies. It's just a different stage. Like if we have a microgreens actually on the table here. One of them is a tree, but it's just 2 weeks. So usually microgreens are just young shoots of plants or trees or vegetables, like usually approximately like 2 weeks. 2 weeks in that.
So it's just baby, like, so if you see like micro cilantro or micro basil, it's just baby basil?
Yeah, well, yeah. If you plant them, it will just become a regular plant. So the entire game into that, and you're right, all of the microgreens were born like in the 70s, 80s from the sprouts. And then after the sprouts started to change and people started to be a little bit worried about the sprouts, and the microgreens came as healthier than the sprouts and grown in for us, for example, in a greenhouse with the sun. So it's more like conventional greenhouses, but we embrace technology. The thing that is amazing about the microgreens in general is that the flavor profile. And that's one thing that is extremely important because people tend to forget where products come from. If you take basil, there's more than 400 varieties of basil in the wild. And we only use like maybe 4 varieties, and always the history of the plant is always fascinating. If you take like the carrots were not orange. They were more purple. And the story of the carrots, it was in the Netherlands to make the king and the queen of the Netherlands happy. The natural color of the Netherlands is orange. And it started to develop a variety that was orange and touched the carotene. It didn't made it on purpose, but was sweeter carrot, and it became much more popular. So sometimes the vegetables that we see today have been not modified but improved to become much more attractive to us.
Right. Now, so is the smaller, the baby versions of the herbs, are they more intensity of flavor? Or if I'm a chef, why am I using microgreens?
So that's what I've been always trying to fight, because you don't want it to end up like in a plate and people just push it on the side, like they will do usually with the famous mint with ice cream, and people just put it on the side. And I've been always pushing that, say, guys, it is like a living condiment. And you're right, the flavor profile is much more intense on the microgreens. And there's the other aspect that I hope that sometime we should get much more interest about it is the nutrients aspect. Like usually it's 40 times more on average, more nutritious than the adult counterpart that you will take.
Did you know that?
I did not.
I didn't know that.
So
cool.
They are kind of loaded, and especially when they are babies, because Mother Nature kind of load them with antioxidants and vitamin to protect them from the insect, because insects don't like antioxidants and things like that. So that's kind of a trick, and when the plant grows, it's kind of diffused through the plant because the plant is becoming healthier and stronger and doesn't need kind of those superpowers to defend itself.
And how long does it take to get to this state that we're looking at right here?
So the growing aspect is the easiest part. It's just like 2 weeks, I would say.
Okay.
The research, and I don't mean research in the lab, but finding the right variety is much more complicated. And that's really where we stand. And John, you know us for a while, and that's really when I came in the US in the beginning, the market was price driven, not quality driven. And me coming from Europe, the dynamic was a little bit different, where the chef would say, well, I don't care if it's cheap, but if it doesn't taste good, I don't want to see it.
Right.
And it's a right balance. Both of them are important, but then the industry started to change, and now you have a lot of produce company with the right actors in it that will search this unique ingredient to be able to provide quality to the chef. So many of our varieties, when I say the most complicated part, is finding the right varieties that are out there, because again, there's thousands to find them. It takes us usually, we will receive like 20 varieties of basil and so on, and we will try them, and maybe they will work. Sometimes they will not work. But then after, even if we like one, we need to be able to secure the seed supply for the next coming year. So even if we like a plant now, with the volumes that we use, it will take like years before to secure the supply of seeds.
A lot of work behind the scenes. So these grow year-round in greenhouses. So there's that great consistency. And these are all alive.
Yes.
So if we get these at a restaurant, how long will they last alive in our kitchen, and what's the proper use and everything?
So like I was mentioning, so when we came here in 2006, we came with living microgreens. But of course, people wanted also cut microgreens because it's more convenient. So depending on the restaurant use, so those one in particular, the living microgreens start to become more and more and more popular because there's no real shelf life because the product is still alive. So as long as you keep the medium moist, because it's a clean natural fibers and not grown in dirt, so it's safe for the kitchen to use. And you will keep them 3-4 weeks without any problem. As long as you keep the medium moist, they have no reason to die.
I mean, I don't know why people would want cut ones anyhow versus the live, because they're just like they're so fresh. Obviously, when
like
you're
bursting
just
with flavor,
and also texturally, they pop on the plate. They have all that texture.
I mean, I'm like, these flowers look beautiful, but if you were to, you can see where they were cut, like the ends are, a little bit like brown, which, here you're not getting that because they are alive.
Yeah.
So.
Also, and that's depending also on what the kitchen prefer. When we came here, people were requesting the cut one because it was more convenient. So we provided them both. But again, all of those different flavors, you go from the one that tastes like a cucumber to roasted garlic to have my savory Willy Wonka, where if you chew on it, the flavor keeps changing as you chew on it. And many of them are fascinating. What I find amazing in those plants is that you can actually taste something that people 200, 300, 400 years ago were tasting. Like you have the experience. I mean, imagine now if you can tell any ladies, hey, we have the exact perfume that Cleopatra was using. I can guarantee it will be a bestseller right away.
Right.
And now for me, it's like, what experience, what plant or what flavor can you get and tell you that was used 1,000 years ago,
right?
By the Aztec, from Africa, from Tibet. I mean, I personally find it fascinating. It's an experience.
How many different varieties of product do you have today?
So in total, over 70.
Wow.
That include the flowers, the cut microgreens, the living microgreens. So that will be the 3 categories that we have. And we have, of course, beside the edible flowers, we also have edible leaves because there's also plants that really take too long to grow as a microgreen, so it will not make sense in a greenhouse. So we grow them adult, and that's where we bring the adult leaves.
And do you find that the chefs know how best to use these, or do you have to go and help educate? Like earlier, we tasted a leaf that was amazing to me. It tasted just like a Granny Smith apple.
What is that called?
Tartness and crispness.
So that one is called Ica leaves, and we call it Ica leaves or butterfly leaves because it's easier to remember.
So
Isn't
it's deep purple
in the
color.
day it opens and then at night it closes.
Yeah.
I have one. I'm gonna like go home and eat the plant on my.
I hope you don't get poisoned.
I hope not too.
I'm just kidding. So no, I'm not kidding about you not getting poisoned.
That would be the most famous episode ever.
When you present something like that to a chef, who I'm guessing most are not familiar, haven't seen it, do you have to say, hey, listen, this is where I think you want to use it, or do you find that their creativity just comes through and they're...
So I learned a very long time working on the French market with Michelin star chefs that you don't tell them what to do.
Yeah.
The way that I see it is that I would describe the flavor more like, hey, we have new palettes of colors for you guys. You create a painting, and this one is yellow, and this was in pink. So of course I can tell, hey, this one tastes like a Granny Smith apple. So now if a chef really asks me, I say, well, usually acidic flavors will go well with pork belly, with duck, with lamb. I know it will go well because it will counterbalance, but that the chef knows it. So usually when I just describe what it is as a flavor, it will usually it's fascinating because I visit so many chefs, and in the beginning they would tell you, I don't have time for that. I said, no, not a problem. Can you try that? They try it and they stop.
Yeah.
Right.
I said, hold on, what did you just give me? And that's the part that is fascinating. And like I was telling you, it's not about growing microgreens. It's more, for me, much more about what's available out there and making food fun. Because usually you ask a kid what tastes good is not healthy. Okay, my kids will love Doritos. Okay, but
Right.
it's not
Me
the
too.
healthiest. But I do too. But
Yeah.
the thing is that there is things out there that are fascinating and that are totally approachable and that you can find yourself. And I think that the part, like I was telling you, those plants from Long Island that was used by Native American Indians. I find it fascinating, and I'm the French dude.
Yeah.
Right.
But I find it amazing.
Yeah.
For me, I'm like a nerd of the plant, you know.
These native plants. That's
Yep.
so cool. So on the living varietals, how many are there, and what specifically, like what are some of the top sellers, or what are, the living varietals of the microgreens?
So that's where we have roughly 20 varieties of the living one. Now, which one is the most famous doesn't mean it's the best,
Sure.
right? You will have some, like Justin Bieber might be very famous. I'm sure you cannot really compare him to another famous artist like
Right.
Louis Armstrong or anything
Sure.
like that. So I would say now it's not because one is popular that is bad. I would say it really depends. We're just talking about Doritos. Sometimes
Sure.
you will say, hey, what do you feel like eating? Well, I
Right.
feel like
Do you
eating
want
a burger
nacho
tonight.
cheese or Cool Ranch, John?
Right. Both. Yeah,
I like,
I'm kidding.
I'm a nacho cheese.
But the thing is that it's really you will get the most famous one will be the Aphyllacres. That one is like a pitandrels.
This one?
No,
Which
I have
one?
it in the
That's
box.
chives.
I have it in the
This
box.
is chive. Can you smell it?
That this one here.
Oh.
It looks like a very sexy curly plant. And
The
that,
pea tendril?
And yes, that
Yep.
one is like a snow pea. So why is it popular? Is because the flavor is mild. So if you think about it, if you stay to, like we were
Try it.
giving the example about popular culture and popular music, where they are popular, meaning that it pleases a wide range of people.
Yeah.
And the flavor in that is much milder than if you try, for example, the Tahoon. This one is the savory Willy Wonka. That's my personal favorite. It's coming from Tibet.
Okay.
And then it tastes like mushroom, garlic, onion, wet leaf, smoke, and the flavor keeps changing as you chew on it. It's like walking in the wood after the rain.
So this is the Aphyllacres, which
That's-
tastes almost like a green bean, almost like a raw green bean.
Like snow
right?
peas,
and,
yeah.
beau-
Just like
and a
garlic.
beautiful, I love the tendrils and
It's
the way it looks.
It looks very sexy on the plate, like with all those curls, you know.
And then what is this next one that we're
So
trying?
that's the Tahoon. That's coming from Tibet. And
Whoa.
that's actually
Very
a tree.
earthy, deep,
Garlic, right?
garlicky. Yeah.
It's like a bouillon,
Yeah.
right? Like the flavor keeps changing.
You could add this to your soup.
Yeah. Oh yeah, my soup. Absolutely.
But you know, it's like crazy because something so simple like that can be so interesting in terms of flavor. And the same thing, we have a fair trade program with a school in Tibet that harvests those seeds from the ground 2 weeks during the year only. So you won't find any production of that because it's a tree. So
Okay.
So you're really experiencing something that is coming from Tibet. That, for me, you know, it's like always a story. I always give that the cultural background or the ethnicity of something make it so fascinating.
Absolutely.
You know,
Now, where do you see the Tahoon, which again is that rich, deep, bouillon, garlicky flavor? What do you find are the best uses for that?
again, that's only my personal opinion,
Sure.
but usually, like I give you a very simple example
Yeah.
for people who might want to imagine what would be the best. But if you imagine with cream cheese bagel, it can be
Oh.
it can be a flatbread pizza with goat cheese,
Yeah.
roasted pine nuts, and shallots,
Yeah.
and with a nice basil vinaigrette on the top.
Yeah.
That just simple ideas will be. You don't need to do
I
much.
love that.
I love it.
You know,
With like some smoked salmon. Ooh.
Yeah.
Because that
It's
has
good.
like some
It's-
smoke
it's
to
good,
it.
and it's giving you the garlic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
All right, what else are we looking at here?
So, well, do you want to talk about living microgreens or about the flowers? Which one you want?
But let's talk
Anything.
about both.
Yeah.
Well, so is this one here, for example, that one in particular
Mm-hmm.
tastes like wasabi.
Ooh.
I know. You know what? It's funny because the guys like to believe they are the one who prefer spicy, but it's not true.
Yeah.
Women prefer spicy
I
way
love
more
it.
than men. So you don't feel it, you don't taste it right away. Just take a few seconds, and then you have the bright, sharp spice coming to it.
And is that what do you call that?
Where we call it wasabi,
So that's a micro wasabi.
but it's not.
Yeah,
It's a variety of mustard.
got it.
So sometimes we kind of, I would say, cheat, because if I were to give you the scientific name of a plant,
Yeah.
people are going to tell
No
you
one's gonna
bless
know.
you, no
Yeah.
one's going to remember.
Right.
So for us it's easier to give a name that is associated with a flavor.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes some plants are so famous that we don't need to make up anything.
Right.
And it will be exactly what it is.
Sure.
So the Aphylla is a variety of peas. You have the rock chives at the end there is a type of chive, but it tastes like roasted garlic. It is not
You can smell it.
leek. If you, for example, if you eat leek sprouts, I would strongly suggest not doing it on your first date.
Don't eat this?
No, now you can. But I was saying that if you were on a date, you don't want to do that with a regular leek because the flavor is so potent.
This is our 75th date. It's good. I don't think it's, well, maybe.
You
Just
get
hit. Oh, yeah.
You know, it's a good thing as long as both dates eat the same thing.
That's true.
It's like cheese, right? Or garlic.
Yeah.
So after you have, if I take some other example, you have the popcorn shoot. This
So
one
the popcorn shoot, these beautiful long yellow shoots.
Yes,
Almost
I'm a
like
big
it
fan.
tastes like corn.
and it tastes like the corn on a cob, like
Thanks, John.
like the silk of the corn, and that's coming from
Very
South America.
earthy.
So you will get a lot of varieties of corn out there. But actually, if you think about it, South America really kick ass in terms of plant. I mean,
Sure.
tomatoes, potatoes, corn. All of that come from there. They're
Started
really,
there.
yeah. It's really where it's fascinating.
And are the popcorn shoots actually coming from some form of corn?
Yes, yeah. This one in particular, it is a true corn.
Wow.
Like a baby corn.
But so that's the part that is fascinating, and that's where I'm not restricted with microgreens. There's of course some challenges because sometimes I cannot find the seeds, or when we find the seed, the great thing with that is that you will be able to look for all those ancient varieties. So if I plant that corn in a field, I can guarantee the farmer will not be happy because the corn might not look perfectly fine and things like that. So that's the advantage that we have if you take the strawberries today. Strawberries now are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and the flavor goes down every time. Concept is very simple because people figure out and understood that the weight makes the price. So now you harvest less strawberries and they are heavier, full of water, then it's better.
Right. Less to fill the container.
Exactly.
Right.
So all the varieties through the years have been developed not with flavor in mind.
Right.
They have been developed to extend the seasonality, to have a tougher skin, like tomatoes. John, you know it very well. Tomatoes usually are shipped even green from the manufacturers. That's why they will tell you, oh, my tomato doesn't taste like anything. The one that I have in the backyard. Yes, 500% because it gets the sun, it creates sugar inside the plant.
Right.
That's why your backyard will taste way better just because of the sun.
Do any of these have seasonality to them, or is it you have constant supply?
Everything that I provide is all year round.
24/7.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes.
Okay.
What's new in the mix? Anything that's like the last couple of years that really exploded on the market?
Yeah, so obviously, we know with the incident of a few years ago, everybody kind of stopped. So we had plenty of things in the pipeline that we had to put on hold. There's one plant that we are about to launch in the next 2 months. It's a Cuban oregano, and the leaf is very thick, and it looks like the tree of life if you look on the back of the plant, and it tastes like a nice juicy oregano. When usually oregano, well, the leaf is pretty tough, so unless you put it in a sauce or you make a chiffonade out of it, or that one is amazing. So again, that's the same story. How many chefs will be able to use it? Well, it's always, that the market is like a pyramid. The higher you go, the less people you have, and the more basic you are, the more people you reach. So all products have their own niche market. That's why the afila that tastes like peas will match from a French cuisine to American to Asian cuisine to anything Italian, anything in the middle. After, if you do Cuban oregano, I'm not sure that will please a sushi restaurant, for example. So it really depends. All of them have their own niche.
I mean, they're so pretty. They're like just so beautiful. It's not, and obviously the flavor, but I like as a chef, I would imagine like rather than just a traditional herb garnish, to have these on the plate just looks so great with that flavor and the uniqueness of it. Yeah, it really is. They're
like
they're so beautiful.
Like
And
this one almost looks like crystally.
Yeah.
Right? Like it has like a shimmer to it. You're looking at beautiful white or yellow buds there that, I mean, those create not only flavor, but like a sensation of like a Szechuan peppercorn almost.
You know what? That's a Szechuan button, and of course, people who listen to us cannot experience it, but it tastes like a 9-volt battery.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I know that I'm very surprised that you say yes, because usually the woman will tell me, "What? 9-volt battery. Why? I say, yeah, you never put your
On
tongue
the
on
tongue,
a battery.
yeah.
Say, you're a guy.
I was like a wild child,
Well,
so you're
unless
good.
you have big brothers usually would force you to put your tongue on a battery. But yeah, it's like a 9-volt battery, like pop rock. So people would say, how can I use that? Well, it was back in 2008, a restaurant in New York City was making a shocktail. So instead of a cocktail, you have the electricity. You have another restaurant in Las Vegas was making a signature cocktail where you're supposed to nibble on it. And then after you have this tingling sensation and you're supposed to kiss your lover because they will feel the sensation through that.
Come here, John.
I'm not trying that.
A chef that I know very
It's
well.
okay. You're not my type, John.
Okay.
A chef that I know very well, and he knows it a lot as well, is Mark Forgione, that came here as well.
Yeah.
And I knew Mark from a very long time when he just started to open his restaurant, and Szechuan button was, and I believe it's still on his as one of his signature dish, and he doesn't do signature dish because he doesn't want to get stuck.
Sure.
But that one is like phenomenal, what he does with it. So in his restaurant, you eat it first, and then after because it kind of clean your palate, you know.
Are these available across the United States?
So yes, so we are mainly focused on the East Coast, like I would say from Chicago to all the east part, and after for the West Coast, in the next few years, I give you a secret, we are working and planning on opening also on the West Coast. So that, and the only reason it's not because we can't, it's because we don't feel that the quality of the product will be consistent if you ship it all across the country. I mean, we're still talking about microgreens. Yeah. In a perishable world, it's the most perishable item, except the living one. So you don't want to send something by FedEx across the country for 6 hours, and that's not something we feel good about it. So we want to maintain our quality, and we didn't want just to bring a good idea on the West Coast at an expensive price after the freight, and at a bad quality. It will not be smart.
And how do the flats of the living microgreens come? How are they packed?
So they come in a box of 16 cup. So it looks like a bigger box, but again, because the shelf life is 3 to 4 weeks, if you're a chef and you don't go through it within 3 to 4 weeks, I will have other concern.
Me too.
Right, yeah, there's a problem.
So, but after that, after the cut microgreens come in different sizes, you have 4 or 8 ounces. Usually that's what you find on the market. And all the flowers come in different sizes.
Yeah, so if you're a chef on the East Coast, check out chefswarehouse.com, and you can find all of the Flavour Fields microgreens that we talked about today.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
These
you,
are
Nicolas.
so good.
This is
it's
amazing.
been a while since I've seen them, and they're so great. I mean, I want to buy a box and just take it home.
I want to make a microgreen salad at home.
Yeah, amazing. Thanks so much, Nicolas.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Thank you, guys.
Cheers. Are you excited to talk about microgreens, Andrea?
I am excited to talk about microgreens. I think there are these hidden gem jewels that chefs use to really enhance a dish. And I'm really excited to talk to Chef Taylor Knapp, who's the corporate chef for Flavour Fields, to learn, how do you become a corporate chef for a microgreen company?
That's a great question. So Andrea and I are in Chicago today.
We are.
Taylor, you're out on the North Fork of Long Island in Riverhead.
Riverhead, yep, right at the crux of the forks there.
Right in the middle of the fork. And that's pretty close to where Flavour Fields is growing their amazing microgreens.
In fact, I'm here at the greenhouse right now. The greenhouse office.
Nice.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit, Taylor, about your journey and how you got to Flavour Fields, and what does it mean to be a corporate chef for a microgreen company? Sure.
It's a niche role that I'm very lucky to fill. So I'm a chef by trade. I went to Johnson & Wales for culinary school out in Providence, and I've been cooking in fine dining restaurants for the past 10, 15 years. At some point, maybe about 8 years ago, I decided to stop kind of that full-time restaurant work and put some effort into this snail farm idea that I had, an escargot farm here in the U.S. And to really be able to spend the time to work on that, I needed to get out of the restaurant industry full-time. But I wanted something that was exciting and vibrant and innovative to do that didn't quite suck so much of my energy up. And so I found Flavour Fields and just reached out to them, to Nico, the owner and manager, and he had no idea what to do with me because he said, "Well, we're a farm. We grow microgreens. What are we going to do with you?" And I just kind of wanted to get in here. I wanted to kind of get my foot in the door. So I said, "Well, I'll water your microgreens. I'll sweep the floors. Whatever you guys need me to do." And that was enough, I suppose. So I came in as kind of a production sort of role. So I truly was. I was cutting microgreens. I was sweeping the floors. Doing some watering when needed, picking lots of flowers and leaves. It was very hands-on, and that's what I did for maybe 2 to 3 years, and then eventually kind of fell into this more corporate chef role where I'm able to kind of lean on the things that I know about how restaurants work and how chefs' brains work, and help kind of connect things from a farm perspective, with a chef's perspective and what they're looking for. So, and that's sometimes recipe development. That's thinking about some new plants and flowers that we could be growing that chefs might be looking for. Things dealing with flavor profiles and just ways to use these things. So, on the surface, it's just a plant or it's a flower, and kind of digging a little bit deeper and figuring out exactly how it can be used. Is kind of at the heart of what we're doing here.
So I guess you kind of created this position for yourself, which is kind of cool.
Well, maybe a little bit. It wasn't open. There was no position like this, before I came around. So it kind of formed together, and it was very organic in the way that, I was able to use my skill set and the way the company was moving forward with the things that they wanted to do. They've never wanted to be just a farm. It's always been much more than that. So, having a very strong culinary focus and, a branch of the company that was just dedicated to working with chefs in restaurants has always been part of the game plan.
So is there, you talked about, being more than a farm, that you really want to kind of be a resource to chefs and kind of help them if they want to, create something, or they're working on a dish and they want to leverage microgreens in there. Can you tell us maybe an example of a story of how you supported a chef through that journey?
Well, I mean, it happens often where they will reach out to us and they'll say, "This is kind of the menu or the dish that I'm thinking, we know you guys grow incredible, flavorful, products. How do we connect the two here?" So, I'm not there to tell them what to cook or how to cook it, but I am there to say these are the things we have growing right now. These are, the flavor profile. This is how we can use this to kind of elevate this dish and make it more of not just, we're not looking to have things on the plate that are simply visual. Flavor is key, and then just that overall, visual and textural experience is very important. So anything we can do to kind of heighten that and take what the chef has already prepared and make it that much better is what we're going for.
What are some of the more interesting or outside the box ways you've seen microgreens being used in restaurants?
Well, so we've got some very unusual stuff. One of the plants, an oyster plant. This thing grows wild all over the countrysides and the seasides really of the UK and Europe, and it has this beautiful oyster flavor. A little bit of a light cucumber thing going on, just a little bit briny. So that paired with one of our other plants, the salty fingers, which is a juicy kind of succulent that we add salt water to. In fact, we water the plants with a little bit of salt water. And so that combination is just shockingly accurately reminiscent of a fresh oyster. Between the juice and the crunch and the brininess of it all. So, we've paired those things together before on the plate, or just even, by itself is kind of a really interesting amuse-bouche, just a bite like that. The Szechuan buttons, people know these things now. They go by a couple different names. I think we do them best here. I've used these in a really interesting way myself at the pop-up restaurant. There's a really kind of fun appetizer bite that we've done. It's a Danish abelskiver, or it's like a savory pancake almost, but we make it into the form of a ball, and we filled the middle with a smoked eel mousse. Okay, so that's kind of inside, but on the menu it reads as electric eel hush puppy, and we add the Szechuan buttons to it. So you're getting this electric buzzing tingle on your tongue as you bite into this thing, and the menu says electric eel hush puppy. And of course, these are not electric eels, and of course, you're not actually being shocked, but you're reading
you
this.
get that sensation.
And you're eating this, and your tongue feels like it's, hitting a battery, and people just freak out because, we have to tell them, really, you're okay. There's nothing, actually happening here. But it's a kind of a great mind play that works with that. So
that's fun. I think it's always fun when you can play with your food.
Yeah, we're trying to make it interesting. I mean, and again, I keep going back to this, but the things that we're growing, while they are beautiful, the flavor is the key component here. So we have some really nice, a couple different flowers in the begonia category, apple blossoms, and some Incan begonias now that we just started coming out with. The acidity is really high on them, and they kind of just make your mouth water. And I think they pair really nicely with raw fish. So oftentimes, and it's just not normally what you'd go to, pairing a begonia with raw seafood, but the combination there, it just works perfectly. It's almost like a little squeeze of lemon or something on a piece of sashimi or crudo or whatever.
Yeah, I don't think you would think about microgreen adding acidity. I think you're always thinking about vinegar or, some sort of a citrus note. But to be able to add a microgreen and still get that acid, I think it's pretty cool.
Totally. We have a couple different plants that work that way. We have Ica leaves or oxalis, which are high in oxalic acid, so that same kind of thing, where it's very tart, and it's a great way to kind of counterbalance some of the things without adding maybe vinegar or lemon juice. All of it's in the form of this plant, which looks pretty, but adds something to the dish. And in that same vein, we've got some plants that are very spicy and peppery and have huge horseradish flavor. Things like our nasturtium flowers and our nasturtium leaves. And so those, when added to the dish, you're getting this super peppery, pop that really complements things nicely. And it's a condiment, right? It's a living condiment.
What are some of the most popular flavors of Flavor Fields microgreens that are being used?
That's a great question, John.
Thanks, Andrea.
You're welcome.
Well, we sell a lot of Aphelocress, right, which is in the pea family. It has that super fresh pea flavor.
Like a pea tendril?
It's like a pea tendril. It's smaller. It's curlier.
Okay.
This we sell in both a living and a cut variety, but I think they're really beautiful in the living because you could take just one or two of these things. It's not meant to be used as kind of a big pile, just one or two placed here and there. They stand up really well to heat, which, chefs are really sensitive about. If they're using heat lamps and they've got a microgreen under there, it's gonna wilt in just a couple seconds. So with the Aphelocress, it really hangs in there. And then the shelf life is just incredible. It looks great. It's got this kind of wild, viney, almost ivy look to it. And then the flavor is just a punch of fresh spring pea. So a lot of chefs go for that, especially this time of year. We sell, quite a bit of daikon radish, which grows very quickly here. That's kind of a good thing for us. But it has super peppery, components, very kind of bright, punchy radish flavor, juicy, same kind of thing though. Looks really good, holds up well to heat, really nice shelf life. Those are probably some of the biggest microgreen sellers Well, and then on the edible flower spectrum, we do a lot of shiso. So we have large shiso varieties. We have, and those we call our shiso oba, right? So those are the full-size leaves that you would maybe see in a Japanese restaurant. We have both a green and a purple variety. They each have their own kind of nuanced flavor profiles. And then we also have the micro varieties.
So in terms of you mentioned living microgreens versus cut. How would a chef make that decision if they wanted to have living microgreens? Is there any additional care? Is it something where if it's living, it'll like regenerate and they can continue growing it?
Do they need to water them?
Right, exactly. Is it like a plant?
Yeah, all good questions. So they are living. They're in our kind of patented paper fiber material, which is what we grow everything in. So whether you're getting it already cut in a clamshell or you're getting it living from us, it came out of this paper fiber, which means there's no dirt. There's nothing to clean. You don't have to wash them, which is really nice because as soon as you start washing really tender, delicate greens, things fall apart. So they're ready to use, which is nice, which is the case for the living microgreens. You don't have to water them. They've got enough water and nutrient in them to keep them for the entirety of their shelf life, which is about 2 weeks. And I think it's a great way to use microgreens because it encourages you to not do this. Chefs love to do this kind of grabby pile thing with clamshells of microgreens, where they just kind of grab a pile of it and plop it on the plate, and there's kind of really no thought process behind it. And that serves a purpose. All right, I'm not like poo-pooing that. That's a fine way to do things if that's the way that you do them. But the living microgreens really encourage you to just snip a couple leaves. And it's a great kind of economical way to do it too. Snip just a couple leaves because it's not kind of this tangled mess. And you can kind of put just a couple on the plate. I mean, truly like 4 or 5 greens. And it has such a bigger impact because guests don't see it as this thing that was just put there and they kind of brush it off to the side with their fork. But it becomes incorporated in the plate. It's right. It's part of the dish. It's meant to be eaten and enjoyed with it all.
I think that's a great point.
Absolutely. It becomes an ingredient and it's not just a garnish.
Yeah, it's a better way of kind of tailoring it all together. So I like the living microgreens for that exact reason. The shelf life is longer because they're alive. You can put the box right on the pass, which is what most chefs do.
That's what I was about to ask too. So they're keeping it right on the pass. It doesn't have to be refrigerated. They've got these living microgreens right there. Couldn't be fresher. If you wanted it. Clip it, plate it, and boom, right to the dining room.
Yeah, it's the way to go. I mean, the farm is literally sitting there on the pass, right? It's a live plant sitting at your table, and yeah, a little pair of scissors right next to it, clip a couple off, 4 or 5 on the dish, which at the end of the day is volume wise much less than dipping your hand into a clamshell of cut microgreens, and just putting a couple on the plate, and that's really the way to do it.
And do all of the microgreens come in the living form, or does some only come cut?
No, they all come living. So we also have a couple mixes. We have a Sakura mix. There's about 5 different living microgreens. We have a zesty mix and a basil mix. I think you could even do custom mixes if you'd like something very specific. But everything's available living. Yeah.
Are microgreens more popular than ever?
I think so. I think chefs are just figuring out how to use them. And it's been maybe, 20 years that chefs have been using microgreens in this country. And the way that they use them is evolving. So before I think it's always just kind of been this sort of pretty afterthought. I mean, years ago, people used to put the curly parsley right on the side of the dish as kind of just this like wacko garnish thing. Thank goodness we're not doing that anymore. And then microgreens kind of came around and chefs kind of started using those, but pretty much in the same way, right? And so now the thinking has evolved that it's not just a garnish, it's not something pretty, it definitely shouldn't be an afterthought, otherwise don't bother. But it's got flavor, it's meant to be part of the dish, so use it that way. So I think it is more popular. I think the popularity will continue to grow as chefs realize how to better use them.
Do any chefs cook the microgreens? Curious. Have You ever seen anybody like do a tempura of microgreens or any cooking stuff with them?
Yeah, in fact, the shiso leaves make a great tempura. Actually, you can cook with those. There's a couple other ones that would work well in like a pureed sauce. The micro nasturtium being one of them, just super bright green horseradishy sauce. Some of our larger ones, I think, would probably tend to be better for that. Some of our larger, like specialty plants.
Yeah, I bring this up because I think there are some chefs and folks that kind of poo-poo the microgreen because of exactly what you described. You know, they kind of came on the scene. Maybe it was in the late 90s or mid 90s, and it was like just this way to garnish a plate by putting these little precious greens on top of stuff. There wasn't really a lot of thought involved in how the
it could be like an ingredient
was going to affect the food. It was more of just like this little, like, I don't want to say shock value, but this little bit of like cool thing on the plate. And then after a while, I think they got a little abused.
Yeah.
And I think there are so many ways that they can be used. You've been talking about the flavor combinations right out of the gate, which, yes, that's super important, but also putting them into different applications that you wouldn't suspect. I did have shiso tempura, and it really sticks out in my mind as like, kind of think outside the box when you're using microgreens because they are amazing. You do have these precious little greens. They're super fresh when they're alive or even clipped. And I think that, there's a whole world of possibilities that people shouldn't just say, oh, I don't use microgreens, how 1995.
Right. I think there are definitely ways. I've had them in a salad where it really, okay, we've all had, salads in our day, but adding some of these microgreens really enhances the flavor. You get kind of surprising pops and textures. And so I do think that it's something that chefs should consider as not just a garnish, but as something that can really enhance a dish and allow them to be creative.
Yeah, I mean, using them purposefully. The salad's a great point. We have a micro sunflower. I don't know if you have. I mean, these tiny sunflowers, and they taste just like a sunflower seed. So they're juicy, they're nutty. That's a great one to kind of mix into a salad because it's this textural difference. The leaves are thicker and a little bit waxy almost, and so you can feel them. They don't get lost in the mix. When you're crunching on these things. So yeah, using them purposefully and it's not. I don't think we've ever encouraged putting microgreens on everything you make, right? For chefs, which I think is where it typically ends up for people not doing it correctly. It's just this thing that goes like the curly parsley garnish, right? It just goes on everything. And we're saying it doesn't have to be like that. We don't need you to put this on every single plate you make. If you're in spring mode, let's do some barrage, right? This micro barrage that has this juicy cucumber flavor, or the Aphila cress. If it's fall, our micro shiso purple with notes of cinnamon and toasted spices. It's going to go really great with your duck dish that you're preparing. The shiso purple isn't going to go great with every dish you're preparing, and that's okay. It doesn't need to go on every dish. Work it into the menu where you have shiso purple, micro shiso purple, on with this duck preparation with persimmons and roasted beetroot and whatever. And you put a couple of these leaves on here, and it's going to elevate it and make it so much more than it was.
I'm getting hungry, John.
No, I think that's a really great point. There's like a time and a place for it. And it's absolutely essential to use these, but it's got to be well thought of and conceived and not just the curly parsley on the plate that you talk about. Well, this has been an awesome discussion. I can't believe 22 minutes just flew by.
I know. And if you're a chef and one of our customers and you're sitting there and you're trying to think about a dish, you can definitely reach out to your sales rep and get connected with Taylor, who can help support you in that development, getting samples of microgreens to play with as you're developing recipes, always there for support.
So yeah, we love Flavour Fields. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Taylor.
Thanks for having me.
Been a great conversation. I'd love to hear more about your escargot farm on another episode. So thanks again.
We'll talk snails another time. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
Sounds
you.
good. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Ingredient Insiders. Follow us on Instagram at Ingredient Insiders. You can find the products we discussed on today's episode at chefswarehouse.com or at your favorite specialty retailer.